everyone. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two dynamic guests. First, we have Sushil Shugani, director and founder of Stubborn Company, a music services firm and creative arts incubator he launched in 2021. With a career spanning Sony Music, Rolling Stone, and Viacom, Sushil has played a pivotal role in shaping India's independent music landscape, especially the hip hop subculture. Alongside him is someone I'm very happy to call a colleague from the legal fraternity, Rafael Pereira, an intellectual property strategist and Web3 oracle who navigates law and business at the crossroads of technology, entertainment, arts, and culture. As the managing partner of Tinnuts, which is there is nothing new under the sun, Rafael works with creators and entrepreneurs across a variety of sectors, leveraging his background as a Berkeley Law graduate and international entrepreneur. Together, they are founding members of India Music Exchange, IMX, an industry led organization that elevates Indian music globally by uniting performers, labels, publishers, and professionals. I'm super excited to dive into their insights on India's music scene, creative industry, and global collaborations, and also talk more about something very special they have coming up, the India International Music Week in Feb 2025. Thank you so much, Sushil and Rafael, for being here. I know you're both neck deep with reps for the upcoming conference. So a big warm welcome to Let's Talk Music. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Sandhya. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sandhya. It's yeah, I know we've had to schedule this a couple of times, but yeah, that is how it is in the months leading up to a massive
I can
showcase
imagine.
festival.
Yeah, it's literally like our time is not ours anymore.
I can imagine, which is why I appreciate this so much more. I know it must be like, insanely hectic for both of you. So I'm not going to waste time on small talk, of course. I will dive right in. So I think given the kind of, backgrounds each of you come from, right? Like you both have extensive experience in music, tech, and entertainment, and media entertainment, so to speak, right? What was it that was the deciding factor for both of you to like come together to like set up IMX? And what was it that, to sound cliched, what inspired you to do it? And how do you think it would bridge the gap that we have today, right, between artists and stakeholders and the rest of the industry? So what is it that prompted you to like work on something like IMX? Rafael, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think the turn of the pandemic was what paved the way for India to become this focused market internationally, right?
Yeah.
China was priority A in terms of emerging markets or markets that international companies wanted to go to before the pandemic, and that with the pandemic, for whatever reasons we know very well, the path to China was kind of shut down for multiple reasons. And when companies were looking at, what's the emerging market we focus on next within media and entertainment specifically, India seemed to be this territory that they hadn't considered or revisited for years before the pandemic. A lot of people, I think, made assessments, wrote reports, including the US Commercial Service, I think, had written a report in 2016. They tried to update it in 2019. A lot of export offices, cultural organizations had also written reports on the Indian music market or media market pre-2016. So let's say pre-streaming. And with the surge of consumption in India during the pandemic years, I think everyone discovered, this is not a sleeping giant, or this is the giant that's really
It's
walking
awake
around on the other side of the earth. So we need to go visit. And So Sushil and I were talking just during that, I think 2020, 2020, 2020, 2021, we were in touch, and we received some inquiries for doing a sort of market mission and fact-finding mission to India from a few European export offices.
Right.
And this is a study that the European Music Exporters Exchange wanted to do, and it was commissioned funded by the European Union. And we worked together, facilitated that, made a lot of introductions on the recording side of the business, the publishing side, the live side, and we introduced them to key stakeholders for them to hear it from the horse's mouth in terms of the history and the state of the industry today and what the future is looking at. And I think post that, there was a lot of interest, because on this fact-finding mission, I think there were just like 3 countries who participated in the fact-finding mission. But post that, it was there was a lot more interest. We had about 12 people from 9 different countries come in 2022. Maybe I got the years wrong. In 2022 was the fact-finding mission. 2023, there was the whole trade delegation that came in. And while we were making these introductions for these delegates to figure out the India side of things, we were met with one of 2 responses on the India side. One is, hey, great meeting these people. What do we do next? And the second thing was, hey, what's a music export office, and why don't we have one in India? So that's really when Sushil and I got talking, and we started speaking with organizations, trade organizations in the Indian music industry. And then we also started speaking with government to see, okay, how do we create a specific focus on the export of Indian music and the stakeholders within the Indian music industry. And we realized that there was no real program or the intention to set up a program within a governmental framework at that point. And at that point, all we did was we asked the government, if we create this sort of framework and we create a program, we create an organization that's industry-led to do this, will you support? And they said, of course, we will support this initiative, because yes, it boosts our exports. Anything that's driving us in a net export direction, we support. So then we started garnering support from all of the copyright societies, the trade organizations. We built India International Music Week as a flagship initiative, and I'll let Sushil speak a bit more about it in detail. But we took our plans to all of these organizations and said, let's get ready to go beyond the Indian diaspora. Let's get Indian music. Let's get artists, songwriters, professionals, and music businesses out into the world. And at the same time, we did this based on a lot of learnings of dealing with multiple export offices internationally, and also traveling to a lot of showcase festivals and conferences across the past 3 years. I would say. And we've been in, we've been to approximately 16 plus conferences and festivals at this point.
I think we've had this conversation. I remember this. That's crazy.
We're popularly known as the crazy guys even across the conference network, because Yeah. We've been informally nominated for a Guinness Book of World Records also.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Just to illustrate, we in 2023 in October, we did 8 conferences in 4 weeks across 6 countries. So yeah,
My
so
God.
it was.
That's I'm feeling exhausted just listening to that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a new city at like every 2-3 days. New context, but for us, it was we were out on a mission to figure out how we could develop these trade routes, and we were also kind of on a recon mission to see if we could develop a sort of showcase and conference format that's palatable for international trade, but suited to an Indian industry and audience as well. So, yeah, we were in a clear mission, and with India Music Exchange now, it's slightly over a year old,
Yay.
and
Okay.
so we laid the foundation just after that trip in 2023, and yeah, then it's been constantly working with the different trade organizations and copyright societies to have their support on different programs, to work with the government to have support on initiatives like India International Music Week. And we have a lot more in store. We have another sort of membership oriented initiative, but we'll announce that in India International Music Week.
Okay. To kind of, I mean, considering like, since I'm hoping that we have a lot more artists listening to these episodes. So if I had to ask you a very noob question, right? Like, what does the IMX do and how does it work? Like, what is it? Who are its members? Like, who are its key, um, I don't know, people? And as an artist, how is it relevant for me? How would you describe that?
Sushil, do you want to answer?
Sushil, yeah, you.
Who are the?
Well,
I mean, what is the reason for?
I guess I'll tell you. So, like what Raf was also saying, it's where it got inspired, why it got inspired, and now we're coming to how are we mobilizing this further, right?
Yeah.
From like all other industries in the world, the music industry and the music segment in the world is looking at India because obviously India is delivering the numbers. Everybody's seeing it.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of ambiguity about the Indian market to start with, right? People don't know, hey, I mean, from any international's point of view, it's like, hey, all I know is that it's the most populated country in the world. Of course, there are a few internationals from the music industry around the world that have been coming to India over the last decade or even more, of course. There has always been this insight that everybody has shared in international circles saying India is not ready for it yet. What did they mean by India is not ready for it yet? Right? What they meant by that, as we realized, was India was not at par with global markets from various aspects, from a technological aspect, from an infrastructure aspect, which is still growing. From, when I say technological, then you're talking more recorded side of the business. Broadly, of course, it also spills over into live. But when I say infrastructure, you talk more about from the live side of the business and stuff like that, right? Who are the operators? Why hasn't some of the biggest live operators or promoters entered India? And various such ambiguity and misinformation to an extent. Last October, while we were at all these conferences, we were not just visiting these conferences. We were at there talking about the Indian market, indulging, participating, and opening it to questions. So, like after all the panel discussions, like we were either part of a panel discussion talking about the Indian market, or we were the panel discussion which was focused on the Indian market, which was trying to, as far as possible in the given framework and time limit of a panel discussion, as far as possible, trying to demystify the market, so to say. From an inward mobility point of view, I think that has been our first process, which is demystify the market a little bit, tell them a little bit more about the challenges that are in the market. When we talk about diversity, that diversity is a challenge as well, right? It's an advantage, but it's also a challenge. It's not only a challenge for an international, it's also a challenge for an Indian marketer. A music marketer, for example, or manager, which I've played various hats in the past. When you're looking at, okay, I've got one track, my next track, which is Hindi and Punjabi. Where do I start marketing this from? The segmentation of the market, the starting with saying, hey, we have so many languages, so many dialects, so many states, and each state is a country. When we've been in Europe, we've actually drawn benchmarks to don't look at when you're looking at India, don't try to compare any kind of or have any kind of benchmarks from Germany or France. Look at India as Europe. And then multiply that diversity by 10, right? So those are the broad kind of benchmarks in terms of some kind of guidance, some kind of demystification about the market as far as possible in a given network, in a given panel discussion. Now, what happens is while we're out there talking about the Indian market, everybody's curious about Indian artists and about Indian music. You know, what's happened, you've probably seen it yourself, Sandhya. What's happened in the Indian industry over the last 10 years is not something that has happened ever before. Absolutely. I have seen the music industry. I've been an active part of it since the last 18 years almost. And I've seen the journey when we talk about independent music, what independent music has stood for, what does non-independent music mean, the segmentation of Bollywood versus non-film. And where does the value lie? But the one major shift that's happened over the last few years, I would say over the last decade, gradually, but accelerated by the pandemic, I would say, is that artists took front and center, right? There was always that dependence on any kind of singer who was looking to make it in India or the Indian music industry. Bollywood was the final destination, right? Now, that shift of it becoming an artist-centric market that's accelerated over the last 4 years, so to say, that was the most interesting shift, even from an international point of view.
Exactly. Yeah.
While we've been out there, there are increasingly Indian artists that are getting signed by international agents, whether it be different regions of the world, whether it be America, whether it be Europe, whether it be UK. Apart from foreign record labels and companies and international record labels, companies coming and investing and establishing in India, that is one process, of course. But then there are artists that are getting signed by agents and managers in different regions who are focused on that specific international region. That curiosity has been, I would say, has grown even more in the last 1 year. Because of certain artists like PCRC from Pratik Kuhad, what's happening with with Punjabi music from coming in from Canada to Bombay. Some of you, over the last few days, we've seen 3 of the biggest artists from AP Dillon to Diljit Dosanjh to Karan Aujla perform to audiences of 15 to 20, 25,000 solo sold out shows. This entire shift is all, in fact, a part of the entire shift that's happened in the industry, right?
And Hanuman kind.
And Hanuman, of course, he's
like
another, And right now, in fact, while we've been talking about the Indian market and Indian artists around the world at conferences and showcase festivals, we have also particularly been interested in going beyond the diaspora, because one insight is, if you make it in India, you will make it with the Indian diaspora everywhere around the world.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Artists such as, like, say, a Divine, for example. Divine is somebody who's obviously gathered and he's proven his mettle in India. When he goes to tour in different parts of the world, he is getting 3,000 to 4,000 sold out shows in different parts of America, Australia, UK, even. However, it is still limited to the Indian diaspora, which is not bad at all. In fact, when we have been out there in different parts of the world and we've spoken about this insight, people are like, artists from around the world. They're like, I would kill for something like that, you know. Like you were getting 3 to 4 thousand sold out shows in America and Australia just based on your popularity in India, right?
And your population. So
That's ultimately it comes down to that, right? Um, However, going beyond the diaspora is it requires a particular approach. It requires a specific setup, a specific. Obviously, given the fact that your music and your performance and all that has to be checked off. Obviously, I mean, I'm not even getting into that creative discussion, but from how do you work a market, that has been a kind of focus for us also. So while we've been out there talking and demystifying the Indian market, we've also been identifying opportunities for Indian artists beyond India, uh, identifying opportunities such as festivals, such as showcase festivals.
Fantastic.
Even in terms of the recorded side of the business, there's always a curiosity about hey, what kind of music's really popping in India? You know, we were in Croatia 3 months ago in September, and we got invited by a radio station in Croatia and Zagreb. And before they kind of got us on air, they also they wanted us to send them a few links of Indian artists that they wanted to play. We sent them a good mix of Indian artists, like artists who are performing in Indian languages as well as artists who are performing in English. They were absolutely floored by the music that was coming.
The quality also,
They were a team who had not heard anything from India, not even like nothing. So when we send them certain artists and in Indian languages and other languages, those artists actually became part of the India segment on radio on that show that day. Is because they actually saw that they were like, wow, like this is not something that I expect. This is like really great music, and this is really artistry and excellence, and from every aspect. Apart from that, we have been identifying opportunities for not only Indian artists but also different sides of the ecosystem. Just one example would be we partnered with a festival called Les Escales that happens in France. Les Escales is a festival that happens in a town called Saint Nazaire in the southwest of France, and they do a Globetrotter program. We met them in Paris last year in October, and they wanted to start including India, but they didn't know where to start. That's why we stepped in. They have a Globetrotter program where they invite 8 to 9 festivals from around the world every year to come to Les Escales, experience the festival. The festival director or the owner of the festival would go, plus an artist from the festival's last lineup would also go and become part of Les Escales. We helped them identify that festival, which was ultimately identified that Echoes of Earth. So it became that Echoes of Earth actually traveled from to Les Escales, the festival. There was 2 days before the festival, which is more a B2C festival. They also had a B2B program for various festivals from around the world to meet each other and meet a business delegation, a B2B delegation from France specifically. Apart from this, which was the Echoes of Earth team being there was also an artist that needed to be selected. So that artist was Hamza Rahimtullah. Hamza Rahimtullah and Rajasthan Folk Stars was selected. They also traveled with the Echoes of Earth team there. They were supposed to play. They were supposed to perform 3 slots at the festival over 3 days. They landed up performing 5 slots because they worked so well with that audience that suddenly after the first 2 slots, the festival director came in and said, "Hey, can they perform? Can they perform again this slot? And I'd like to put them on the main stage. Can they perform that slot as well?"
It's crazy.
So that was one initiative. Another initiative was also identifying delegations. While we have been to a lot of conferences, and while those conferences reach back out to us, it's our responsibility somewhere to start being more inclusive and push more delegations and more delegates from India. So we suggested and got Rumpa from IPRS. We had her go over to Lithuania for their own showcase conference and festival, so to say.
Okay.
We also had Kiss Nuka
Yeah.
perform at Line Check in Milan, which is
Right.
essentially Italy's, I would say, one of the more popular showcase festivals of Europe and in Italy, so to say. Um, Similarly, there are a lot of other connecting the dots, essentially
Yeah.
identifying and connecting those
Yeah.
dots. It takes a lot of facilitation because people from foreign markets don't understand what the Indian
Mhm.
nuances are. And then when you
Yeah.
talk about Indian artists or the promoters or record labels looking at foreign regions, a lot of matchmaking, a lot of connecting the dots. That has been the process at IMX, so to say, so far.
Mm. That's, and I think, I mean, that's fantastic. That's a lot of work in a very short span of time. So well done, you guys. This is insane. I think, I mean, and very exciting for someone like me as well, working in the industry with artists. I think it's because there's like a general, I feel like, with the kind of conversations that artists are having online about, they're generally quite distressed about a lot of things, like, with the festivals getting cancelled and not getting paid on time and all of that. But I feel like the more exposure we have to the international markets, your standards need to go up, the infrastructure has to catch up. So all of these problems kind of will get resolved in the
Yeah,
process because,
yeah.
so this is great news, I think, for,
And there's obviously a lot of learnings. Now, when we're talking
yeah,
about IIMW, there's a lot of learnings from international markets that
yeah,
will flow in. A
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
learnings from a recorded side of the business, from the live side of the business, from publishing. Obviously, you and I both know publishing is obviously a particular challenge,
yeah,
specifically in India.
in India, yeah, yeah, yeah,
When we talk about terms, there's a certain terms that Bollywood operates. I wouldn't say a
yeah,
generic Bollywood, but most of
yeah.
Bollywood operates on a buyout and
Mainstream,
things
yeah.
like that. When we talk about that in international markets, they are
They're
absolutely
just
mind
like,
blown. They were like,
what?
"What are you even talking about? How
I
can that even
know.
happen?" Right?
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of conditioning, saying, "Hey, this is the nature of the beast. Now, if you want to be here and you want to be with the beast,
You gotta like
there's a
figure it out, yeah,
certain give or
navigate that.
take. There's a certain give and take. There's a certain other ways of working with Bollywood. It's not just about making music for the original soundtrack. There's a lot of room in background scores that Bollywood has interacted with a lot of international
Yeah.
markets already. Um, so yeah, there's it's endless, so to say. You can keep on digging and improvising, and to be honest, from our point of view, it's a constant process of keeping ourselves in check, saying, "Okay, stop improvising now because you've stopped giving
There's
in,
so
or
much
stop
more to
stop
Yeah.
do.
stop chasing perfection." It's
Yeah.
never going to be perfect, but you've got to take it step by step. Take step one, forget about step five right now.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
just
keep
getting
step five,
started and
step
there's
10 in
so
mind.
much.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So which I think this is like a great segue into the next question about IIMW and how that came about. I think that's fairly obvious. I mean, we needed something like it. It's
Yeah.
like the perfect like offspring of IMX. And what is it? So what is it that you have in mind for IIMW? I know it's a conference with panel discussion and all of that, but who are the people attending it so far? Like, and what are you looking at achieving with it?
So I'll tell you quickly about where it started so that kind of get
Yeah,
some
yeah.
context as well.
Context of it, yes, please.
Last October when we were laying down the groundwork for IMX across various conferences and working with various trade organizations and being in conversation with them, one question to them was, "Hey, if we do something like India International Music Week, will you come?" And there was 100% saying, "Of course we'll come. We've been waiting for something like that." Um, Also, there is obviously a great conference which is all about music, which is extremely important from the music industry point of view. For various reasons, it's just, it's also a matter of timing sometimes when all about music happens mostly in summer,
Mm,
which, from the other side, as we talk about the West, particularly Europe,
mm,
UK, America, Canada, South America,
mm,
it is peak season time for them. So it's not really the most favorable time of the year for them. A lot of them have come to All About Music. In fact, the last All About Music, we also had a delegation of approximately 40, 35 to 40 international delegates from 7 different countries who were interested to still come for All About Music because it is an important conference. I mean, it's your
Pretty much
first
the
step.
only conference. Yeah.
Yeah. From an India International Music Week point of view, once we got that 100% in from a lot of trade organizations, delegations, companies, artists, managers, agents, promoters, everybody is obviously interested in India and they're looking for a contextual place. That's what kind of gave us that confidence that there hasn't been a better time for India International Music Week to take place. In fact, if you would have asked me 5 years before, I would have been like, yeah, okay, who needs another conference? But today, with the context specifically with the context, and I would say a straight manifestation of what IMX's objectives are, but in a more physical form, in a more tangible form, in more of a form where you gather delegates and people who are interested, delegates, artists, managers, agents, record labels, publishers, bookers, festivals, more importantly, from around the world, willing to interact and bridge uh, trade routes, so to say, with India. That is something that gave us the confidence, and that is what India International Music Week is. The whole context of India International Music Week is what matters the most. That is the differentiator, right? We have been spending a lot of time on online web calls and webinars, sort of calibrating a lot of the international delegations which are coming in, saying what to expect at India International Music Week, right? So, whereas, yes, there are panel discussions, there are workshops, there are B2B meetings. Of course, we have a showcase festivals. For Showcase Festival, where we're going to see artists from around the world and from around India. Artists which are export ready, artists. And when we're saying emerging artists from India, we're talking about artists who are export ready, artists who've already demonstrated their commitment to the music, to the business, and to the growth of their own. They have worked the Indian market and now they're ready to kind of go beyond India, right? That is what India International Music Week is. So, one, of course, setting the context of who we are going to meet, what are they expecting, what are you expecting? I feel what has been our most, in one word, if we have concluded any of these webinars or sessions, it has been to calibrate people to come in with a reciprocal mindset. That is the most important crux of India International Music Week. Even from an international player or an international record label, artist manager, booker's point of view, we have made sure we tell them straight up, this is not a gold rush. It's not something that you're going to just get into India for one conference and walk out with bags of gold, right? Or bags of followers, because followers equals to gold in today's time. Followers, fans, subscribers in different forms. Yeah. It is a commitment. It is a long-term commitment. It does take its time. It's a market that sooner or later you have to approach. So the sooner the better. The ones who are going to get in now are going to have the early advantage, so to say. And when I say reciprocal mindset, don't look at just coming in from an international delegate's point of view or a delegation point of view. Don't look at just coming in to bring in your music, so to say, or your catalog or your artist or your roster, but also look at what gaps an Indian artist or a roster or a catalog fills in your markets. So I think that has been the most important core of India International Music Week that has taken us the last 1 year of calibrating people from around the world, which is a reciprocal mindset will go a long way. So
that's been our learning.
No, so
also, right? Sorry, you were saying something.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's been our learning from a lot of the music export offices as well, and therefore we wanted to have a trade office that goes both ways. Where it's not just export, but there's a lot of import happening. It just needs to be streamlined and facilitated and supported in a better manner. So therefore, we are the India Music Exchange and not Indian Music Export or India Music Export.
That's odd. So you're not positioning yourself as an export office. You're positioning yourself as an exchange. So is there a government like component to this? As in, are you associated or affiliated with the government in any particular? I mean, obviously, you need to have their endorsement to do this because you're representing the country. But
so there is the Services Export Promotion Council that focuses on export of services, and then there is the in ITPO, the Indian Trade Promotion Organization office, and then for film you have something called the Film Facilitation Office, which is now called India Cine Hub or Cine Hub India. Just 3-4 days ago. And you have the Indian Chamber for Cultural Relations, which is a cultural office in that sense, right? So with these offices, even though there is a separate film facilitation office that's the office that's responsible for making sure India has more visibility in terms of shoot locations, and the Indian music industry, the Indian film industry has a lot of inbound inquiries for business, for shoots in India, for edits in India, or just engaging India as a film market, which can then also contribute to global projects. And that's, in a way, export of services.
Right.
There is none for music in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And so our job has been to liaise with each of these organizations and then create an offering for the music industry. Yeah. But on the flip side, I mean, we are working with all of these international export offices to help them connect with stakeholders in the Indian music industry, to help them partner with the right organizations in India so that they long term they can succeed. But like Sushil said, the most important thing is to have that mindset of
context and intent.
Yeah, to have that reciprocal kind of respect and exchange, right?
Yeah.
It's not that, okay, we're here just lining up to buy whatever you're selling. It's okay.
It's the colonial mindset.
Yeah, it's we're here. Why should we buy from you versus anyone else?
Yeah.
And more than that, what can you do for me as well, right? So
it has to be reciprocal. Yeah.
Most like 2 years ago, when we spoke to most export offices, they were shocked. They were saying, but we can't do everything. You like even basic things like, oh, can you connect us with buyers in your market? And they were saying, yes, we know the buyers and we can connect you in our personal capacity, but in our official capacity, maybe. And we were just looking at them like, no, this is not going to work for you. Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, India International Music Week, you will decipher that managers are the agents in India, or rather agents are the managers in India. So if you want them to look at bookings for your artists in the Indian market, then probably you extend an olive branch with a booking for their artist in your market. And that's the best way to do business as well. So, and kind of the premise for India International Music Week, it's been, what is the relevance and where is the relevance of international music in India?
Yeah.
And at the same time, what's the role of India and the global music industry going forward? Right? Is it just our numbers, or Yeah.
The music itself. Yeah.
The music itself, or are we going to pay for the numbers we're generating, or the numbers we're generating paying for the music that we're listening to? It's a lot of conversations around that. And this is at this scale, yeah, with the Showcase Festival and Conference, it's truly one of its kind, because we've got 3 stages running in parallel. We go outdoors first, and then we go indoors.
Well, yeah.
And then,
Fun.
yeah, the conference has got also 3 rooms running in parallel, plus a lot of B2B meetings and mixers and reception. So we're essentially doing a global, global style conference happening in India.
And it's in Goa. So.
In Goa. Yeah.
I was thinking of this, considering the number of people both of you have met, right? Like across the world, part of these export offices, and just who've been part of the industry doing the business side of things. And now that you're building something, obviously, this is like you said, it's not an export office, but it's an exchange. What is it? What do you think is different from the Indian perspective, which is, I wouldn't say holding us back, but which has kind of putting us, like, we're playing catch up now, right? Like there's so much for us to like do to like kind of bring ourselves at par with a lot of the international standards in terms of how they're doing business. What are the experiences that both of you had while setting this up, both IMX and IIMW, which was very different from what they have gone through with setting up a music export office for their respective countries. Of course, I mean the government involvement, the infrastructure, and I feel like priority for the industry as well, because a lot of times and the entertainment industry isn't regulated, so to speak, as it is in the other countries.
I think we don't have funding, right? If you talk to the ICCR also today, Indian Chamber of Cultural Relations, they used to have an empanelment program where artists could get empaneled, and in the relevant genres, the relevant art forms, they would travel to different showcases, travel to different embassy and consulate events that the Indian government is putting on or producing in various countries across the world. I think it's been definitely more than 5 years, maybe almost even 10 years, that they've not empaneled any new artists. The reasoning being that they've not managed to give enough opportunities to all of the artists who are already empaneled. And for with tapping into those resources and those funds also comes a certain amount of challenges, which is what's the agenda? Is it contemporary? Is it classical? Then what needs to be showcased, right? What aspect or facet or perspective of India needs to be showcased? When we looked at other organizations, especially Europe and let's say South America, we look at the global North versus global South. It seems to be funding that is really the question.
Yeah.
In the global South, governments haven't really woken up to the fact that you can build soft power. You can build both economic and cultural soft power through investments in this sense, through simple support to this sector. And so when you look at export offices in Europe, they've got state funding, they've got national funding, they've got regional funding, and then they've got European level funding, right? That they can either they have by default or that they can apply to for various projects. We don't have that. I mean, in the creative and cultural industries, I think the only organization that was giving out grants is India Foundation for the Arts.
Correct. Yeah.
That was actually giving out grants. Yeah. So for us, that was that was of course the existential, the most obvious kind of challenge, which is okay, funding. If we have to create a program that is long term, how do we do it without funding? Do we ask members? Do we ask supporters? Do we ask sponsors to part with the budget? Do we create some sort of patronage with maybe some cultural organizations and create a sort of grant system where we can offer grants to artists to travel internationally, to be present at showcase festivals and conferences. And that got us thinking of, okay, if we need to have some sort of financial sustainability, maybe we'll look at what the industry needs and some of the gaps in fulfilling those needs as well. So we've thought of everything from insurance to pension schemes to to Mediclaim at this point. And we've looked at even using the commissions on those schemes to fund mobility, right? Because that's where most of the money would go towards. Anyway, when another kind of challenge was getting the industry together when everyone is suing each other at some point to say, okay, drop your arms and let's focus on because again, if it were simply export, it would be a lot easier. But because this is about exchange, we need both the buyers and the sellers. And on the buyer side, guess what? It's not the trade organization. I mean, it's not. It is the promoters. It's the producers. It's the venue owners, the restaurant, bar, club, and hotel owners, right? And on the other side, we have to weigh the interest of the publishers, the labels, the artists, the musicians, and the managers and the agents and everyone else, right? So it's been tough, and these are challenges that you don't necessarily see in other third world countries as well. We're specifically focused on export. We added to our burden by making it exchange, but we believe long term this is what will work. And it's been a little over a year, but people are already talking about it. They're already saying, okay, if we need to do business in emerging markets, this is what we're going to have to do. And just this one, you saw with the music commission at Saudi Arabia, that they're embracing this model as well.
And I feel like also because of how, like you said, like Sushil was mentioning, like how diverse the industry is, right? Like, and given that for us, music and the relationship it has shared with the film industry, and now the evolution of music as an industry on its own, I feel it's that I think understanding that difference and kind of educating the global markets about it when they're approaching India as a market to, I don't know, either like invest in or purchase from, and having an avenue like IIMW, I think is great. I mean, it's not like we've not had conferences like you mentioned, but I've always felt like All About Music has been more in terms of uniting within the country as opposed to more about having like the world.
Yeah, because that's first. First. That's required first. You first have to look inward and develop what's in here.
Right.
So yeah, that is obviously a key differentiator from our point of view. But inward development and looking inward and getting together is something that All About Music does fantastically. Obviously, we all know that. But to have this, it's very difficult to build it in one project. You know what I'm saying? To build a outward look and export import agenda and inward look in the same,
No,
it's
it'll be
it's
too
almost
much.
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way, I feel like each
That's
of
where
you
we
have
saw the room.
played.
That's why we
Mhm.
saw the room for something like
Correct.
India International Music Week.
Yeah.
And that's when we started talking to people about it in India. We started talking to people about it outside of India. And it was 100% confirmation that it is the right time. More importantly, I think is the right time in this global music industry where India stands in it, and why the future of the next 10 years is, there couldn't be a better time for India International Music.
Fantastic. And I mean, is anything that you both of you are like personally excited about in terms of a specific component of IIMW, which I'd like each of you, I'm sure you'd have like different parts of it which you are, specifically keen on like talking about or like promoting, or, even for that matter, just a general excitement about, oh, this is going to happen at IIMW and I was responsible for it. So what what would that be?
I don't even know where to start because there's so many things.
Pick one. You can pick one.
That will not be fair. That will not be fair to the others. Of course, the showcase is an exciting element because, while we've traveled and we've seen showcase festivals happen around the world, and we've seen showcase festivals happening and all across Europe, East Europe, Africa, America, Canada. And every time we've visited these showcase festivals, uh, like we've both looked at each other like, man, like, why hasn't somebody done this in India? Right? Every time we have spoken to somebody in India, also, it's not just about showcase, but a conference and showcase coming together. And even in the Indian market, while we've been speaking about it to key stakeholders, a lot of people saw it and were like, why hasn't somebody else done this before? I was like, well, we're doing it now, and you can be a part of it.
Yeah. That's quite a flex, right? To say that.
People from around the world converging on a common idea, and the idea being India. And coming in with an extremely explorative, and this is another thing which we have been telling a lot of the international delegates that we have been talking to who are coming in for India International Music Week, saying, come in with an open mind. It is something which is a market. The terms and the conditions of this market are unlike any other. Forget about terms and conditions and how they're contracted, but even talking about cultural differences, diversities, even what Raf just mentioned, every agent is a manager, every manager is an agent. A lot of the internationals, when we tell them that, they're like, well, what are you talking about? Like, how can manager and agent be same? I'm like, yeah, because DIY over here, and we've all learned by the only way a manager can survive is if you're also the agent. Otherwise, it's far from. However, going forward, maybe that learning and the differentiation of having that differentiation between a manager and an agent is just one instance of the knowledge sharing that I'm looking forward to. The knowledge sharing between global markets and India, not only about Indian insights, but also about why did certain structures come in place in the global markets, and how Indians and Indian markets and operators can learn from that aspect. I feel that is an extremely exciting aspect from it. Apart from the showcase, apart from the fact that we're looking at some great partners, some great sessions, some artist launches as well.
Too many options, Sushil.
And there are a few exciting launches we're looking forward to. Not only launches in terms of initiatives not only by us, but also certain companies and certain artists who are looking to launch their projects at India International Music Week. Because they've got a strong international projection to their projects. And similarly, we're also looking at a couple of international artists who are coming in with a very set agenda at India International Music Week. So a lot of them obviously come in with an open mind.
Yeah.
And when I said we're talking about that to a lot of international delegations, because say, for example, in my previous jobs with MNCs, where I had to kind of give them a market orientation about India. And you start with talking about playback singers in Bollywood and how search on Bollywood music works. That people are not searching for the singer's name, but they're searching for Shah Rukh Khan, right? The latest example was Dua Lipa and the whole show, and you know how Abhijit, the singer, this like finally he came out with it on social media and said, like, guys, like, yeah, all said and done, Shah Rukh Khan, of course, is Shah Rukh Khan, and he's a great name, and he was the face of the song, but I sung the song. So if you're doing a Dua Lipa into SRK, I deserve a mention, right? That is a straight up example of one of a big difference. So in the past, when
and what about the composer, like the composer itself? Yeah, I mean, that's another question.
This is a panel discussion we're getting into. I'm not going to reveal too much. but yeah, so you know, in the past when I've dealt with certain international counterparts and jobs that I've been in, and given them this idea about playback singing and how search operates, and how, for example, giving them an orientation on YouTube search, on how people search for music on YouTube. And you tell them that people are not searching for the singer, but people are searching for the star or the actor that was lip syncing to the song. And they've just completely closed off. They've just completely shut down and said, okay, we don't understand this. You deal with it, your market, bye. To avoid that closure is why we've been telling people, saying, come in with an open mind. You know, it's not a market that you have heard of before. The deeper you get into it, the more mind-boggling it gets. But the very fact that you're taking a first step into the market is because you're interested in the market, not only just from a research point of view, but you're interested in doing business in the market. And yes, the sooner, the better. Come in with a long-term mindset, come in with an open mind, and come in with a reciprocal mindset. That has been like a 3 baseline, so to say, to conclude most of the sessions I've been doing.
And I feel like you've taken away all of Raf's options because you kind of picked everything as what you're most excited about.
He has his own options. I'm sure he has his own options.
Raf, tell me
he
what
will
you're
come up with
excited
something
about.
that even I have not heard of so far.
What is it that you're like super kicked about, you know, IIM? Apart from, of course, the flex that you guys have like built this really fantastic organization and team.
The closing breakfast, which is happening at 6 a.m. On the 7th, when we get to say
like
goodbye.
A post-party breakfast?
No, we get to say goodbye. I don't have to see most of those people for another year. After we've helped them figure out how to crack the Indian market, and or help them figure out the European market. And
Raf, not mincing words. He's just I'm tired of this. Please leave.
I'm getting tired of just thinking of another end breakfast. I thought that third night is the end of it. Now you're talking about a breakfast.
You just burst Sushil's bubble.
I mean, we're Indian at the end of the day. We have to feed them before they leave. We can't just like, okay.
Fair point. Yeah.
Thoda aur kha ke jao.
No, but just taking off from what Sushil said, we've got some exciting announcements, launches of new organizations, new trade organizations that are going to Indian that are going to really help the music industry organize itself a lot better, to manage itself a lot better, and to develop itself a lot better in terms of tech. So I'm giving you a few hints, but
hints. I think I already know what you're talking about, but it's good.
Yeah, and we also I'm just excited to see some of the. I know that in our mind we already know some of the Indians who will meet internationals and develop projects there. We know in the past that certain labels or publishers have really hit it off, or some certain publishers have discovered talent at even our mixers. And I think over the past 2 years now, before anything else, we've been known to put together some good mixers and receptions where we actually scold people who are talking to people of the same nationality. And we're like, you need to mix, you need to mingle. You can talk to a fellow, Austrian at any other point. You can talk to, you can talk to a fellow Indian at,
we've actually gone up to them. Both of y'all are from France. Why are you all standing together?
Go to the other end of the room.
Other ends.
So,
I like this. Raf has like the headmaster vibes.
Go or you'll get a notice. Go fast.
That is beyond headmaster now.
That is the lawyer in him that's coming out.
But I think even the format of present, even for the Indian brands within the music industry, labels, publishers, distributors, DSPs, being able to showcase what they stand for by doing something as simple as throwing a party and mixing, answering questions in an informal environment, which is where we know most of the business happens.
Right? Especially in this industry.
We just do recaps and confirmations of email on email. Everything's happening in this environment. So why not we do it officially in this environment and create spaces for that? So I think that's what I'm really excited about all of this. We see some of these mixers, some of these receptions happen.
Amazing.
And the launches there. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. I'm super excited, by the way. I've already booked my tickets. I've already arranged for accommodation and all that. So, which brings me to my next question. I'm assuming anyone who's interested in the music industry can attend.
Yes.
And like details are available on the website for people to like purchase. Is there any special discounts offered to artists or students? Like, how does that work? Is there any format?
So in terms of tickets, we are live on Insider District. At this point, you can find us even through the Zomato app. You'll be directed to our ticketing page. Information on our program will be up on the website at this point. So you can go onto our website. You'll find more details about some of the speakers who are scheduled to speak, artists showcasing at the festival. Our announcements have been in full swing at this point. We've announced artists, speakers, and a couple of venues. So we've already announced our conference hub, which is the Westin in Bhagator. All of the showcases will be within a 10 to 15 minute walking range. Because we all know about the cab situation and transport situations in Goa. We've been conscious of that, but we would like everyone to make a holiday of this. Take those steps. I know 10 to 15 minute walk is also big for us, but
your 20,000 step count.
Just think of your Fitbit
and great, fantastic. I think, I was discussing this with a couple of other people as well who were equally excited about IIMW. And I think it's like conference season that month for you have another conference happening later that month. So it's just overall, I think it's going to be quite a busy time for the industry, which is great news because I think we need something like this. And I'm extremely hopeful of what IIMW has in store. And I think what both of you are doing is just, it's incredible that you're actually doing this in addition to what you already do.
Yes.
So I have no idea how you're managing it, but hats off to both of you. And but thank you so much, because I think this was very important for us. This conversation was very important. I think everyone will be really excited to hear what what IIMW is about and what it has in store for the industry, and and what it can do for artists. I think more importantly. So, and if anyone has any questions, of course, there's a lot more information available about IIMW on the website, which I will be providing in the description below. And I think even about IMX, there is a website with all the information about it available, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
At our launch, you'll see the
Yeah.
website.
Okay.
So at this point, we have an email address, which is projects@indiamusicexchange.org. And
Great.
our social media is active. So that's where we post all of our updates on the
Perfect.
IMX site. And India International Music Week, Instagram, LinkedIn, website, and inside our district link. That's where you'll find us the updates.
Amazing. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you both, Sushil and Raf. I really, really appreciate you taking time out to chat with me. I know you have like a hectic schedule ahead of you. And I wish you all the best for IIMW. And I'm looking forward to seeing you both there.
Looking
Thank
forward to seeing you there too, Sandhya. Take care.
See you in Goa.
Yeah, see you in Goa.
See you in Goa.